Nigeria celebrated her independence yesterday, and a whole lot of things came to my mind as I scrolled through different posts and different opinions as to what has become the current state of affairs in a place like Nigeria. It was in 1960 that the country gained its independence, but the whole idea of independence is even a thing I as a person struggle to come to terms with. I as a person struggle to accept as a reality, because why should a people born free come to be granted independence to start with, if not that something had gone wrong somewhere? Not even the almighty America, as they want to believe their life and their story to be, they too celebrate independence. It goes to show how crazy our world and our times are. And so the idea of independence makes me cringe. It makes me recoil back to myself and ask myself, how well or how bad have we governed ourselves down here? And the statistics are staggering. There's nothing to show that we've lived in peace. Not even in the so-called continent of Africa now, where a whole lot of persons channel everything down to colonialism and leave it there without the need to bear responsibility for what actually went down or what actually is still going on in the continent. 2 days ago, Very Dark Man was in the news for his reaction and the way he appeared before the hearing set by the National Assembly of Nigeria. And for good and for bad reasons, you get to see how the story unfolds as to the officials who were initially suspended coming out to say the suspension was a social media suspension. It wasn't like a suspension really necessary, so to say. And they asked him, "Are you on suspension?" He couldn't even give a clear-cut answer as to if he was on suspension or not. And so people started asking the question, and I also am asking: is it the case that all the suspensions we get to see of people, from ministerial appointments to parastatals and what have you in the country, are those suspensions actually the case? Bobrisky went to prison, or so we were told. And all of a sudden we are hearing that he wasn't in prison. If someone like Bobrisky didn't go to prison and was actually kept in a self-contained or in a different apartment for 6 months, 7 is prison time, what will now be the case for top-ranking officials who have served Nigeria badly and have either been indicted one way or the other? Is it the case that they also didn't go to prison, or they also didn't serve their time on? And how many more can actually do what they are meant to do in terms of restitution and in terms of coughing out all they have stolen? How many persons in the country actually face justice? That's a simple question I'm asking myself, because I can tell you for free that the whole idea of independence was not gotten because we actually needed emancipation. And someone like David Hundenyi has pointed out clearly that we didn't really go through the rigor he believes needed to be granted independence. As such, we have not really come to have a national front. We've never in our life come to have a national front, unlike the RPF, that's the Rwandan People's Front, or the fight of Amilcar Cabral, or the surge and the move championed by Kwame Nkrumah, or that championed by Patrice Lumumba, and as many persons who fought down through the paths that have now become history. Sometimes you might not sometimes you want to accept with him. Sometimes you want to follow such argument, but how does such lead to a logical conclusion? It's a thing I don't know. It's a thing I also still struggle to understand how amongst many countries you could say Nigeria got its independence in a platter. And yet the country has continually gone down. The country has continually fallen down a spiral. The country has continually oppressed its own people, making Dostoevsky a prophet when he said, "It seems so natural that man is an animal made to oppress other animals." A thing we strongly do in our time, a thing we strongly keep up with, a thing we have not given away, a thing we still find very difficult. And so you find the Hausa telling the Igbo that such are the problems of the country. So you find the Igbos telling the Hausas that the Hausas are the problem. So you find the Shekiri telling the man from Ibira that they are the problems of the country. You find the Nsuka man accusing the Onitsha man of being the problems of the country. So you find the man up west, the Yoruba, the Calabaris, the Ogonis, you find these people putting knives in the things that ordinarily should hold us together. And like Chinua Achebe will get to say, put a knife among the things that make us one. And now, the center can no longer hold because indeed, things are falling apart. Things are falling apart on many fronts. Nigeria has not seen progress in the last 64 years as ordinarily it should be doing. Nigeria has not seen the necessary progress it needs to champion its course into the middle ranks of developed countries. Nigeria has not looked at her problems squarely. So that we find children go to school and yet don't believe in the emancipating power of education because of poverty. And poverty remains a bedrock here guiding everything. And where there's poverty, I bet you corruption is not far. And we've seen corruption in Nigeria. We've seen corruption on many fronts. We almost all of us are complicit in the things that get to leave us corrupt and in the things that get to hold us down in this pitfall. What do I mean? We have family members, brothers and sisters, aunties and uncles, cousins, fathers and mothers serving in different parastatals and different bodies in our country. And for whatsoever reason, the Holy Book gets to tell us that a priest is drawn out of its own people. It's not taken from the sky. Our leaders are here. We know them, they know us. And as D.K. Chukwumerije will say, the gods we've made, they are not men and women made out of whatsoever. They are men, we know them, we carry their bags, we hail them Baba, we call them Madam. We open their doors, we open their gates. We fall to the ground and worship them. They are the man-made gods we've come to have in our lives. So no family can ordinarily get to wash itself and exonerate itself from the things that have come to hold Nigeria down. While not every family might ordinarily be at the helm of affairs at the beginning of things as to where the problems actually originated from, not a lot of families can get to tell itself that particular stuff. But no family can tell itself that it has not participated in one form or the other in the things that have come to hold Nigeria down. No family can comfortably say that they have not benefited in one way or the other, or they have not been part of the problems that have been our current situation in the country. So that we have a president we barely know. No antecedent, no father, no mother, no brothers, no sisters, just his wife. And on the wife says she's 64. Their first daughter is 61. Their father is in his 70s. Come on, guys. Are we joking? So that we find people day by day constantly making a caricature of their age and telling themselves they are young, they are this, they are that. So that people get to tell themselves lies upon lies upon lies upon lies. We fake our age, we fake our date of birth, we fake our smiles, we fake even our sorrows. We tell ourselves we are fine. You ask an average Nigerian, how are you? He tells you, I am fine. She tells you, I am okay. You ask an average Nigerian, how you dey? He say, I dey kampe. Everything dey. Nothing dey shele, nothing dey happen. But we live in the same country where someone like Idris sang, Nigeria jaga jaga, everything scatter scatter, poor man the suffer suffer, gbosa gbosa. We live in a country like this. We live in a country where someone like African China sang, food no dey, water no dey, and our road no good oh. What about the NEPA people oh? We no get light. Rich man go dey halakia, poor man go dey shout. Our leaders make una lead us well. No let this station to fall inside well. Mr. President, lead us well. If you be governor, govern us well. If you be senator, senate us well. If you be policeman, police well. No, they take bribe. We live in that country. And yet we pretend as if everything is fine. These were songs we listened to as kids. These were songs we listened to in the early 2000s and in the mid 2000s. And yet nothing so much has really changed. Nothing so much has really changed. While a couple of families have been able to develop themselves individually, the structure that has come to be Nigeria still remains down there. The leaders have not really done so much. Our leaders have barely done anything. So that I look at APC, I look at PDP, I look at NMPP, I look at the different parties, and I look at myself. And like George Orwell, I look at the left, back to the right, back to the left, and I cannot identify which is the animal and which is the man. As such, we hear Seth and DK Chukwumerije give us the song Animal Farm, because indeed we're living in an animal farm. We are living in an animal farm, and everybody's just looking at their stomach. Everybody's just looking at what to eat, what to drink, and tomorrow they die. But the idea of the dead is not even a thing we really look at squarely and clearly. Because which child would ordinarily want to remain a Mahajiri in the 21st century? Who wants to remain as a nomad? Who wants to do that? But then we say we are all fine. Every day we have men and women die from causes that can easily be cured. We have men and women go to bed and not wake up. We have insecurity across the length and breadth of our country. The north is insecure. The southeast, a place once known for peace and their idea of industrialization, have been crumbled because of agitations not really given attention to. A thing you won't ordinarily blame them. You go down the south, the other way you find Tompolo being in charge of the creeks and providing securities in a place where we have Navy officers and we have a thing like the Navy. You find Asari Dokubo the other side doing his own, acting his own series. So that one begins to ask himself, at what point did we break? At what point did we lose ourselves? At what point did we crumble? Right after we gained independence, or even before that, we were already at the brink of collapse. Corruption was the reason the soldiers gave in 1966 for them wanting to take over the government after having tried their hands on all things they felt can be the solution and the remedies to the problems of the country. And when such had no bearing, when such had no way forward, the coup that has come down to be tagged the Igbo coup happened. And the counter coup also happened in the same year. And Nigeria has never healed from that particular incident or the series of incidents that happened right after the first coup. In the chaotic order of things, Nigeria has spiraled down into a country of bigots, a country of men and women not trusting themselves. Nigeria has gone down the drain. And what held us together, or what was supposed to ordinarily hold us together, has crumbled. And we are left to the mercy of ourselves, not to the mercy of our leaders. Those ones don't know what they want to do. Our leaders are not people we should look up to. Our leaders are not people we should ordinarily aspire or have any hope for or in. Our leaders are not patriotic enough. They go abroad, they travel, they see how things are done. In 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, they come back and embezzle money to get second passports, to get second homes, to get third homes, to get private jets. They can leave the country in and about as they want to oppress people. Our leaders have failed us. Our leaders would continue to fail us until we begin to tell ourselves, enough is enough. But we cannot do that because we've been so traumatized. We've been so traumatized for as many times as we've come out to protest, we've been killed. As many times we've come out to protest, we have been gunned down. For as many times we've come out to protest, there have been one problem or the other that have arisen from such events and such eventuality. For as many times we've come out to agitate and tell ourselves and tell them that power actually doesn't reside with them. They have told us over and over again that power resides where the people think power resides.
Power is a curious thing, my lord. Are you fond of riddles?
Why? Am I about to hear one?
3 great men sit in a room, a king, a priest, and a rich man. Between them stands a common sellsword. Each great man bids the sellsword kill the other 2. Who lives, who dies?
Depends on the sellsword.
Does it? He has neither crown nor gold, nor favor with the gods.
He has a sword, the power of life and death.
But if it's swordsmen who rule, why do we pretend kings hold all the power? When Ned Stark lost his head, who was truly responsible? Joffrey? The executioner, or something else?
I've decided I don't like riddles.
Power resides where men believe it resides. It's a trick, a shadow on the wall. And a very small man can cast a very large shadow.
And until we tell ourselves, indeed, that power doesn't reside with them, following Abraham Lincoln's definition of democracy, government belonging to the people, decided by them, for them, rather than the other way around. Autocracy or whatsoever forms of dictatorship we get to have as a people. Until we come out and tell ourselves, we can no longer take this. We cannot continue in the level of peace we have. We are too quiet for the amount of inhuman actions going down our space. We cannot continue the way we are going. We cannot continue like this. We must forge a way forward. We must try to keep going and keep going right and keep going well and keep going strong. So we must invest in education. We must tell ourselves that education There need to be a state of emergency on the state of affairs of education. Most Nigerians can't write mails. Some Nigerians can't write a mail because there was never a time they used the mail. They open their mail when they want to write jam or when they want to apply for something abroad. It's not a reality they get to live with. I don't blame anybody. I don't use that as a yardstick to test intelligence. Most Nigerians, the sad reality, would never know the cause of their health crisis before they die. Most Nigerians would never get to receive the necessary help they were ordinarily supposed to receive as a people before they die. Most Nigerians would never drink clean water before they get to die. They're always going to take water contaminated here and there, hoping that God come to save them, that God come to protect them, that God comes to guide them. I think that I've seen the rise of false prophets, the rise of false cleric here and there. And the clergy back home has been nothing but inspiring. We've seen fraudulent individuals come up and tell the people things ordinarily they don't get to hear. I cringe whenever I hear people say, God spoke to me. God spoke to you. In which language? How? God spoke to you. You know, our levels of anthropomorphism goes beyond what I can really think about. And I cringe and I feel very bad. God told me, give $2,000, give 200,000, give 100,000 for your situation to get to change. And we find people down the road of becoming atheistic. We find people on the path so sad, on the path so annoying, on the path where they come to challenge the idea of God, the part where they come to challenge the idea of God, not necessarily because he exists or not, but because people have just given them reasons and put them on a path that will make them believe he doesn't exist. He exists or not is not the bone of contention down here. So we've seen people develop false hope. We've seen people sow false hope, false promises. And when these things don't get to come to pass, the people are blamed for it. The people are blamed for not having faith enough, the necessary faith they were supposed to use to be humans, to be good people. And so Nigeria continues to go down that particular line, that particular way it shouldn't ordinarily go. Nigeria continues to go down and down and down and down and down until it will collapse soon, until it will crumble soon. We are heading down that particular path, and there's nothing that is pointing to the direction that anything can get better anytime soon. Though one might not want to hold an epistemic, deterministic approach to life, or an ontological deterministic way of looking at our existence down here, but one still has to tell himself, what way are we going to be saved by the ontology of our reality as to we knowing the end from how we currently are, or are we going to look towards the epistemic way of getting to judge ourselves? It remains a thing we have to tell ourselves. It remains a thing we must come to look for ourselves, in ourselves and by ourselves. But for now, Nigeria should be our focus. Nigeria should be our concern. Nigeria needs good men. Nigeria needs good women. Nigeria needs saviors. Nigeria needs men and women ready to risk it. Nigeria needs people that can tell themselves, we need to succeed, and we need to succeed now. It is now or never. It is now or never again. Because sometimes we might just have betrayed ourselves irretrievably. Sometimes we might just have sold ourselves down that particular path, and we might not be able to come out of our situation. Not now, not in the near future. And so as we continue to hope that things get better, we need to own up to the responsibilities we've failed and the places we've actually not come to live up to expectation. We need to own up to our mistakes. We need to own up to the challenges that have become our life. We need to own up to our current realities. Nobody is killing anybody apart from we ourselves. Whatsoever foreign investors are down there doing, or whatsoever diplomatic entourage, diplomatic bodies back home are doing down there, is because to a large extent we have also allowed them. Not to undermine the powers that be in the world, not to undermine the hypocrisy of the politics being played both from the UN and from other bodies that claim to have Africa at heart, that claim to have Nigeria at heart. I'm not undermining them, but I'm saying a great chunk of what must be done must start from us. We must learn from Egypt. We must learn from China. We must learn from Japan. We must want to own up to our problems and say, nobody is coming to save us. We are the ones that can save ourselves. We are the ones that must save ourselves. We are the ones that must do things for ourselves if things ordinarily are meant to work. Outside of this, there's no salvation. Outside of this line of thought, with the current reality of the political space in our world, nobody is coming to save us. And until we try to save ourselves, and until we try to get out of the water, we labor in vain. Because nobody is coming to save us. It's that simple. Nobody is coming to save us. Nobody is coming to save us. Nobody. Not today, not tomorrow, not next week. And as I say this, I continue to ask myself, what was the idea of colonialism to start with? How brutal and brutish were these men? How? How on earth did that happen? How did we allow such to become reality? But then I cannot say, just like Nege will get to talk about you not getting to know what it takes to be a bat unless you're a bat. So also I cannot really tell myself. But at least we've known where the rain started beating us from. We've known where it has taken us to. We've known how sad our life and our history and our trajectory down here has been. And then we need solutions. We need to find answers to these many questions. A thing we've not done. A thing we've not really looked at. And so rather than facing our problems, we set up committees always. And these committees provide nothing. There are too many conferences happening in different parts of Nigeria, and nothing happens. There are too many conferences. They print flyers. You see this, you see that, you see. We have to come down and start first. Leadership. And I always go back to Chinua Achebe, the trouble with Nigeria. In the 80s, first with the difficult political landscape, he wrote The Trouble with Nigeria. And the very beginning and opening of that book, he said, the trouble with Nigeria is simply and squarely a failure of leadership. He maintains there's nothing wrong with the Nigerian climate. There's nothing wrong with the Nigerian soil, not the air, not the land. The trouble with Nigeria is simply and squarely a failure of leadership. Simply and squarely a failure of leadership. Leadership in our personal lives, leadership on many fronts. Leadership in things we don't want to accept, leadership in things we ordinarily should be ashamed of, and yet we still don't bear responsibilities for. Leadership on a lot of fronts. And until we begin to tell ourselves that, you know what, it is not about us, it goes beyond our individual self, it goes into our future, it goes into the life of our children, it goes into the life of the children yet unborn, yet to be born, into the future, deep into such future, until we tell ourselves that this is the case, until we tell ourselves this is the situation, this is our reality. We cannot go anywhere. We cannot make progress. But how are we going to do that? It starts with an idea. Telling ourselves that we are not the problems of the country itself. It is our disposition and the way we really thought about the solutions or thought about our situations that have given us the current situations across the length and breadth of our nation. Tribalism, nepotism, favoritism, bribery, corruption, mediocrity, the Igbo problem, indiscipline, nonchalant attitudes here and there. These are the things that are our problems. These are the concerns we fail to look at. These are the things we've not really addressed squarely for what they are. These are the things we don't even want to be told as Nigerians. These are the things we don't want to accept. These are the facts we don't want to be reminded of. Our gross ineptitude, our levels of irresponsibility, our ways of living, our levels of being content even in the face of these seeming levels of embarrassment that 60 years down the line, we've not been able to provide housing for people. We've not been able to channel and plan Lagos well. The sewage systems down there still don't function very well. The gutters are still not properly planned. They are reduced so that lands can be sold. And Eco Atlantic, what are the provisions made for the water body? What are we really doing as a people? Education, agriculture, interpersonal relationships, honesty, truth. How far do we really go into telling ourselves that we are not ready yet to get it right? How far do we go to tell ourselves that we don't want to change, we don't want to make progress? How far do we go? How well do we resist help? How far have we gone on the wrong train? How far have we gone in the paths we've gone through? How far do we want to go? How much longer do we want to suffer the ways of our ancestors? How long do we want to continue to be enslaved? By ourselves, not by people outside. We blame a whole lot outside, but we don't blame ourselves enough. When was the last time we held our governors to account and tell them, you must be accountable to us? Yaya Bello is still invincible. Because of what? Ties to different political parties and loyalties I still don't even understand. Because why? Why on earth? Why on earth will anybody in their right senses steal so much money, if not to make DK right? Nobody steals political power and makes use of it. Nobody steals political power DK Chukwumerije maintains and makes use of it. Nobody. I've not seen anybody, not today, not tomorrow, not next week, not next month. It's not going to happen. Nobody steals that particular stuff if they really mean well. It's given, not taken. Our leaders as well as ourselves have not really led well. Our leaders as well as ourselves have failed ourselves. We failed ourselves. And we must lead right. We must start from the family. We must start from the kids and the decisions and how we want to see our society go. We must start from the family. But then what has become the reality of our families? What has become the reality of how we get to see how life gets to go? We've come to increasingly have children without parents. We've had number of kids, uncountable, born to broken homes, broken families, born into problems and families having crises here and there. We have kids who don't know their left from their right. And they see fights in homes, and fathers hate mothers, and mothers tell kids not to love fathers, and uncles fight with aunties, and aunties bewitch cousins, and cousins kill uncles, and nephews hate their uncles, and nieces hate their aunties. And they move down into the society, and these levels of hypocrisy continues. These levels of individualism breeds into what we now call the tribe. It breeds, it grows, it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, leaving us with too many questions to ask, leaving us with a whole lot of things we cannot really understand, leaving us confused, leaving us perplexed, leaving us sad, leaving us living in confusion. Tribalism remains a thing we must do away with. Tribalism, it has been the thing that has kept us where we are. Right from the first war, right from the civil war we've had, and the numerous unrest we've seen in that country, it starts and ends with tribalism. In the sense that it has not seen to it that, people get to transcend beyond the tribe and enter the nation. That is why people say Nigeria is a geographical expression. The tribe has seen to it that many persons don't align with the next person. Even though their ideas might be similar, they fall back to the tribe. They tell themselves, I'm from so and so tribe, this thing should not happen to the tribe. Even in the idea of literature and what that space ordinarily should mean and be, we found ourselves fighting against the great divide as to between Chinua Achebe and Wole Soyinka, who is the greatest. As opposed to looking at the growing number of young creatives who've, against all odds, tried to write and tried to give themselves a chance to speak, a chance to be listened to. We don't. Tribalism has allowed us to be so fixed on Wole Soyinka, on Chinua Achebe, and the rest becomes history. Tribalism have made us discredit a whole lot of persons on this space, whereby authors can actually collaborate beyond the Niger, whereby young creatives should orderly look beyond borders and reach out to as many persons out there. But no. We find ourselves in these sad times. We find ourselves in these great divides, a place where we cannot function. For tell me, how does a people grow if they continue to divide and disagree amongst themselves? The cats are going to fall like cats do fall when taken out of their pack. Cats Cats. We are cats now. We are falling apart. We are falling. We are falling for things not important. People die. People die from roads where people steal money. People die from accidents unwarranted, using of old vehicles not roadworthy. People die and rot in jail for crimes they never commit. All this happening in Nigeria in the space of only God knows how. That is why most persons believe a thing like colonialism should not have gone away the time it did. Because Nigeria, my Nigeria, wasn't properly colonized. Whatsoever that meant or whatsoever that means, there's a little element of plausibility to it. But also, it's not a thing we should be proud of saying we were not properly colonized. Because come on, tell me which country kills its own people. Tell me which government hates its own people. Tell me which government ordinarily will not put its people first. Tell me which government, so-called, which democratic government, to make serious emphasis, would want to seek the demise of its own people by its own self, by the policies it gets to set, by the policies and the things it gets to live by. Which country does that? If not Nigeria. Which country? If not Nigeria. Which continent you see this predominantly occurring, if not Africa? And sometimes you don't even want to blame Egypt or Morocco or Tunisia for wanting not to be part of the shame and the sham that has become our life in Africa. And the so-called white man watches, he looks, because he knows our brothers are so greedy, and he knows that we are not so patriotic, and he knows that we don't want our own progress. And he looks and he watches, standing, looking around, knowing when to devour, knowing how to pounce and pounce. Because you and I have failed to put our differences aside. Because you and I have failed to leave the stories we're told about the man from Kalabari, the man from Hausa, the man from Enugu, the man from Ibibio, the man from Bekwara, the Obudu man, the Ogoja man, the Benue man, the thief, the Jaws who've refused to allow ourselves a chance for cosmopolitanism to take its right chance, for globalization to happen in our lives, for we to meet ourselves where we are. The inventions that have come to be called the social media, the inventions that have come to be called mass media itself, have given us a chance to meet people on different fronts, on different faces. But our brain, in the face of evidence, with a great chunk of evidence thrown at us and thrown before us, we've refused to accept these realities. We've told ourselves we cannot be united. We are not the same. We are not similar. We are different people. Come on. We tell ourselves these lies. We lie to ourselves every day. And we allow our corrupt, stupid politicians to lead us down the path of doom. And when this house is going to collapse, when the earthquake is going to happen, we are all going to be inside. We are all going to die. From the corruption, from the church down to the streets, to the mosques, to the silence we get to hear from our tribesmen when we do wrong, but then they applaud us because they want to be complicit in the affairs of this so that they get a share of the national cake. When we do this, we crumble. And we crumble together. And we fall together. and we crash. It reminds me of that poem, If All Trees Were One Tree. What a great tree would have been. If all men were just a man, what a great man would have been. If all axe were one axe, what a great axe would have been. And if all men were one tree and all axe were just one axe, and all hands were one hand, and all cords amount to one, what a great cord would happen. What a great splash would we see from the rivers that all will be one from the fall of such a great tree. Such a fall is going to be our fall. Such a fall is going to be our fall. If we don't look beyond ourselves, if we don't look beyond the stupidity of our life, if we don't look beyond ourselves and tell ourselves, we cannot continue like this. Agriculture has not been given attention. Everybody wants to make money. Everybody wants to do this. Everybody is migrating to the city. Who farms for us? It is because people have just seen to it that, they cannot continue. We need to re-educate ourselves. We need to give ourselves a new orientation. We need to give ourselves new perspectives and tell ourselves, you know what? We are crumbling. We are falling. We are falling. And we cannot succeed if we continue to fall. And we cannot succeed if we continue like this. And we can only succeed if we come together as one and tell ourselves, we are Nigerians. We are brothers and sisters. Arise, O compatriot, Nigeria call obey, to serve our father's land with love and strength and faith. The labor of our heroes past shall never be in vain. What have we seen? It looks as though Nnamdi Azikiwe, Awolowo, Tafawa Balewa, these persons, despite their differences and despite the circumstances that have become their life and the history attached to them, tried one way or the other, within the limited opportunities they had, to see to it that Nigeria come to be the country it became. Within their differences, without knowing themselves so well, they came together. Why one say, let's put aside our differences? The other said, no. Let us understand our differences. And I believe, and I accept with Zeke, we cannot put aside our differences. We need to understand this. The Kalabari needs to know the culture of the Igbo. The Igbo needs to know what the Ibira thinks and how they function. The Hausa must understand the Yoruba. The Yoruba must understand the Obudu man. The Obudu man must understand the Ogoja. The Ogoja man must listen to the Nsuka man. We must not just want to tolerate the next person. We must understand ourselves and understand our differences and understand our culture and understand the way we live, the way we move, the way we function down here. For how else do you want to tell me that we want to succeed? Whenever we travel abroad and we want to even be PMs in European unions or in the parliaments across different countries, we find ourselves, we want to hold offices, we want to be made chancellors, we want to be made governors. If chance is given to us, we want to be presidents of these countries we migrate to. But then, we go back home and we tell ourselves, if you are not from Lagos, your father and mother inclusive, you cannot be a governor. You cannot be a councillor. You cannot contest for political office. You always asked, where are you from? Where is your local government of origin? Where is your state of origin? How do we want to make progress? How? When we allow tribes when we allow tribalism hold us down, when we allow our sentiments and our level of mediocrity and ignorance hold us down, how are we even going to understand our cultures and understand ourselves if we don't even write, if we don't even read? How? How do we start to tell our story? How do we start to even understand ourselves when there's almost nothing done to understand our differences, to understand who we are, to understand how we ordinarily should progress and how we ordinarily should flow as a people down here? How do we want to do that when we have not given ourselves the necessary time and chance and space to grow and to mature? And so our literature continues to suffer, and our means of publication and the body that has come to be called our media space continues to suffer and suffer from critical thinking, from serious ways of serious thought, well thought out, well planned out. I don't have answers to all of this, but we need more books. We need new philosophers. We need more books. We need new names. We need new authors. We need more and more persons to write. But how can they write when they have not been given the idea of reading? And how can they read when they have not been told how to read? And how can they even read when there's no book to read? And how can they even read when the economy has made and has left everybody on survival mode, has left everybody on this stuff of wanting to fend for oneself? How can the people grow if everybody just wants to eat beans? If the mind has been so thwarted and so scattered and so shattered that everybody's just thinking of what benefits him, what benefits her, and how to get out alive, a thing nobody is going to do. So that literature needs the necessary attention it has not been given in a very long time. Sad times are the times we live in. But we don't want to accept our reality. Sad times are hard times, are the times we are here. But we don't want to accept our faith. We live in very confusing times. We live in very confusing times, my people, my brothers and sisters. Men continue to die. Women will continue to die. Children will continue to die. We all are going to continue to die. And cheap too. Like rats, like chickens, like flies, like mosquitoes, like cockroaches. We're going to continue to die like this because we live life as though we don't really care. We live life as though we are not really concerned. But that is not the case. Nigeria yearns for change. Nigeria yearns for development. But it starts with you. It starts with me. It starts with the youth. It starts with the elders. It starts with everybody. Everybody in this boat. It starts with all of us. It starts with all of us telling ourselves that to move forward, to move ahead, to forge ahead, to form a union, to form a bond, certain things have to go. Certain things have to part ways. The tribe must necessarily give room for the nation and the center to hold, so that politicians can be held accountable for crimes committed, so that corruption can be done away with, so that people will not just die for no reason. My voice shakes, but I will continue to try to speak to the best of my ability, to the best of what I've come to know. I will continue to try to speak how best I know with the limited information I have. But I know Nigeria needs saving. I know Nigeria is not beyond redemption. Neither is Africa. Neither is the world. Despite the conflict and the numerous clashes we've had with ourselves, despite the unrest we've seen in the Middle East, despite the hypocrisy we've seen in political landscapes, we cannot afford to tell our children that there is no hope for the world, that the world is just going to collapse. We cannot do that. And I see this defeatist idea that the world cannot get better in the lives of many persons, snuffing their lives, jumping off cliffs, jumping into rivers, falling off bridges, falling under trams and trains. I see this in the number of persons who don't want to give birth to kids. Not because they don't ordinarily want to give birth to kids, but because they are just afraid of bringing children into such a time and world as ours, such a space like the one we have, such a corrupt, sad, annoying world as the one we have. I know why most persons don't want to even make progress in their life, because they ask themselves, to what end? To what end? To what end are we going to do this? Because it's not going to work. It's not going to yield anything. So why do I have to stress myself one day more when I know the powers that be will not allow me to live my life? I see this in the resignation of many Nigerians. That no go court to, no allow them carry you go court to, because nothing go work for that place. Why I go even vote? Why I need to vote? Even if I vote and no vote, they no go count my vote. So why I go stress myself? I see this in kids and adults getting to say education as scam. I see this in men and women betraying love, having sex out of proportion, sex with no meaning attached, hedonistic to a fault. I see this in the number of alcohol consumed in bars, on weekends, on daily basis by people in houses. I see this by the number of cigars smoked out, cigarettes forming spirals here and there. I see this in the levels of porn addictions practiced and kept by many persons. I see this in the level of gluttony that have now been called food cravings here and there. I see this in the unnecessary merchandise people get to accumulate and keep. I see we telling ourselves, the world is not getting better. The world cannot get better. So let everybody just die. Let everybody just go their separate ways. I see this and it leaves me sad. I see this by the number of persons who practice robbery. I see this by the number of persons who practice scams here and there. I see this by the level of insincerity in businesses. You might not see this. I myself might not have seen more. But there are levels to these things. We're telling ourselves that the world cannot function. It's a function of the dysfunction upon which we have come to live by. And so we tell ourselves, we cannot really succeed. We cannot really grow. We cannot grow beyond this because the world is so sad, the world is so confused, the world is so corrupt, the world is so annoyed, the world is so insincere. And yet we ask ourselves, why should I make any progress? But we don't ask ourselves, what constitutes the world? I understand you might not directly be involved in the politics that come to hold our world bound. You might not have anything to do to remedy the case of Somalia, to remedy the case of Haiti, to remedy the case in the Middle East, but have you tried enough? And when you've exhausted all you can try, have you tried a little bit more? Because it is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who errs, who comes short again and again, who knows that there's no effort without errors and shortcoming, who strive actually to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasm, who in the end, if he succeeds. Who in the end, if he succeeds, knows the triumph of high achievement, and if he fails at least while daring greatly, so that his place shall not be with those cold and timid souls who neither know success nor defeat. These are the lines of Theodore Roosevelt from his the Citizens Republic, or popularly known as the man in the arena. How do you know that the world cannot get better, or will not get better, or will not be a little bit attuned and drawn towards the ideas of justice, equity, equality, and all this? Doing away with racism, doing away with tribalism, doing away with nepotism, doing away with corruption. How do you know? Because there's no evidence to prove that the world cannot become better, that the world cannot grow better, stronger, brighter. There's nothing that has proven or shown that we cannot turn around. Look at China, look at India, look at Japan, look at Poland. Look at the history of the world and look at the chaos that have been in existence for how long. And tell me we cannot make progress, and tell me we cannot grow. Come on, we can succeed. We can succeed if we want to succeed as a people. We can succeed if we want to succeed as a nation. We can succeed if we want to succeed as a people. We can succeed if we want to succeed as a race, the human race. But we need to be bold enough to hold ourselves to account and hold ourselves and tell ourselves we need to be responsible. Outside of this, I don't know how we want to do it. Outside of this, there's no salvation. And as D.K. Chukwumerije will say in his poem, Okwesilieze, today I saw a mysterious thing. A thing that vexed me to my very soul. I saw the black man dressed like a king but crouching in the shadows with a begging bow. His children were starving in fields of cassava, dying of diseases the palm kernel could cure, homeless in a land of rock and timber. Why are you here? He said, I am poor. DK continues, today I saw a mysterious thing. Oh, how can I tell such a horrible story? I saw the black man dressed like a king, but he was lying in the dust crying at my feet. His legs were sturdy like the Iroko, his foreheads were rich and teeming with games, his muscles, they ripple like the proud Zambezi. Told him, get up. But he said, I am lame. Today I saw a mysterious thing, so shocking I have no words to say. I saw the black man dressed like a king, was standing like the lost by the highway. He huddles in a cage that had no gate. He could see where the keys to his chains were kept. He stood on clamps, but they had no weight. Why are you here? He said, I am trapped. How can a man be poor and homeless and his children dying and starving in a land where there's cassava, where there's palm kernel, where there's timber, where there are rocks? How can a man be lame when he has legs as sturdy as the Iroko? with forests rich and teeming with games, with muscles that ripple like the proud Zambezi. How can a man consider himself lame, lying down there, begging and crying for redemption, crying for help when one can help himself? How can a man stand like the lost by the highway when ordinarily his path has been given to him? How can such a man say he is caged and is trapped when indeed his cage has no gate? And what is a cage without a gate? What is a country without a border? What are prisons without bars? And yet this man say he's trapped. He's standing on clams. They had no weight. He said he's trapped. And DK continues, DK holds, DK tries to bring to the notice of the average man living in the world today that, the things that we think are chains, the things that we think hold us, are actually not holding us. DK wants to differ from the man that gets to say man claims to be free, but everywhere when he tries to move, discover he's in chains. DK wants us to come to terms with the fact that these things are imaginary, these things are not real. And he ends his poem by saying, today I saw a mysterious thing. Oh, how can I tell such a horrible story? I saw the black man dressed like a king, but he was sharing a sleeping man with poverty. And to make matters worse, his poverty was a fat man with a bulging stomach lying on his back beside a pot full of treasure. This reality was all he seemed to lack. He could wake up and remake his own future. That is the reality of our life. That is the reality of our life, my people. That we, irrespective of our color, we, irrespective of our tribe, we, irrespective of where we come from, we, irrespective of the family we are born into, the life we've been given, the reality that faces us daily, and the circumstances that have become our existence, we can come together, stand tall, grow, make change where needs be, make efforts, support ourselves to the realms of success. Because nothing has shown in the history of the world that we cannot succeed. So that even the biblical Solomon, who gets to say there's nothing on the face of the earth that is new, would go into contention when he lived in our modern time, coming to see the rise of AI, coming to see the rise of technology, coming to see the new strides we've made, the ways we've come to understand the media, the publishing house, the printing press, and how we've been able to unite ourselves with different means of communication. A thing up until the 21st century we have not really harnessed to our own good. A thing that writers have not used, a thing that we have not really come to terms with. A thing that still leaves us more divided than together. Because now we find ourselves with so much information, too much information, if I should say, leaving us with the problem of indecision. Leaving us with the problem of indecision. Should I do this or should I not? And in the realms of these levels of indecision, one thing can be asserted, one thing we can be sure of, is the fact that we have not really been human enough. That we have not really been human enough in the 21st century. That we have not really been so responsible, be it within the Nigerian space, be it within the continent of Africa, be it on intercontinental fronts. we have not really been so responsible. You and I have a mission, but the vision that has to guide us has to come from within. Nobody is coming to do that for us. Nobody is going to do that. You and I can save ourselves. You and I can help our life. You and I can grow together. You and I can put beside the sentiments we've been told. You and I can do away with racism. You and I can do away with tribalism. You and I can grow and make this world a beautiful place, a much more livable place, a place where humans live, thrive, and grow together. You and I, my brothers and sisters, you and I can live here and die better. I am Biringkpa bin Mecca. I'm your brother. If you do like this video, please like, comment, and share. See you next time.